creation stories from around the world. These are some traditional stories explaining the origin of the earth, its life, and its peoples. Information gathered from ancient Greece. Gaia. In the beginning, there was chaos, the abyss. Out of it first emerged Gaia, the earth, which is the foundation of all. Next came Tartaros, the depth in the earth where condemned dead souls go to their punishment, and Eros, the love that overwhelms bodies and minds, and Erebos, the darkness, and Nyx, the night. Erebos and Nyx made love, and from their union came Aether, the air, and Hemera, the day. Gaia, the divine personification of the earth, gave birth to 3 offsprings without any sexual concourse. Gaia's first such child was Uranus, the starry heavens that fit around her perfectly and that provide a home for the immortals. Then she gave birth to the mountains, where the nymphs live in the hills and the forest. Then she gave birth to Pontus, sea, which sailors challenge the raging waves. Then Gaia laid with Uranus, the heavens, and she gave birth to the Oceanus, the ocean that circles the world. Thus in 3 generations, from the chaos in the first to Gaia, Tartaros, Eros, Erebos, and Nyx. In the second, and to Aether, Hemera, Uranus, Pontus, and Oceanus. In the third, the entire world as we know it came to be. Gaia and Uranus went on to have 12 children, known as the Titans, and Gaia gave race to many others as well. Uranus, loathing all these children, would push them back into Gaia, who suffered horribly with the pressure. Gaia created flint, and from it she made a sickle, and she urged her sons to use the sickle on their father. The youngest of the 12 Titans, Kronos, took the sickle, and when Uranus came to lie down with Gaia, Kronos cut off his father's genitals and threw them in the sea. From the resulting sea foam came Aphrodite, the goddess of love, and the Olympian god not descended from a Titan. The 12 children of Gaia and Uranus, the 12 Titans, intermarried and had many children, and from them grandchildren as well. Among the Titans, Kronos, who had emasculated his father Uranus, became the ruler and mated with his sister Rhea. Because Gaia and Uranus had prophesied that Kronos would be unseated by one of his children, Kronos swallowed the children that Rhea bore, who were Poseidon, Hades, Hestia, Demeter, and Hera. To foil Kronos, Rhea gave birth to her next child, Zeus. In secret and kept him hidden, she bound up a stone in a cloth and gave it to Kronos, who swallowed the stone, thinking it was the next of the children that he sought to contain. When Zeus was grown, he and Gaia conspired to make Kronos vomit up the 5 elder siblings of Zeus. Zeus, son of Kronos, went on to lead his siblings in a great struggle against the Titans, in a war that lasted 10 years, until finally the 12 Titans were defeated and confined to Tartaros. Zeus and his siblings and their offsprings went on to be the Olympian gods who rule the world today from Mount Olympus. It is to them that we make our sacrifice, to seek their favor or appease their wrath with their humble offering of barley, meat, and wine. It is for them that we hold the athletic contest known as the Pythian Games that honor Apollo, the Isthmian Games that honor Poseidon, and the Nemean and Olympic Games that honor Zeus. Prometheus, one of the Titans, made the first humans from clay, and he brought them fire from Mount Olympus. However, Zeus, as king of the gods and no friend of Prometheus, became disgusted with the behavior of humans. He and his brother, Poseidon, caused rain to fall and rivers to flood, so that all of humans would be drowned. However, Zeus finally saw one blameless couple huddled in a boat, trying to ride out the flood, and eventually he decided that they could survive. These 2 survivors were Deucalion, a son of Prometheus, and Phaera, a daughter of Prometheus and Pandora. When the little boat bearing Deucalion and Phaera came to rest in the muddy and mossy landscapes, they decided that they must consult the oracle of the Titan goddess Themis to see what they should do. Alone in the strange world, Themis told them, "Go forth from my temple, cover your heads, and throw your mother's bones over your shoulders." Pharaoh was horrified at the idea of the committing this sacrilege to the spirit of her mother. Deucalion, similarly, horrified and perplexed, pondered the words of the oracle and finally said, "Perhaps the oracle means our mother Gaia, the earth, and the bones of which she speaks are the stones of the earth." Neither Deucalion nor Pharaoh was sure that this was right, but they pulled their robes over their heads, picked up stones, and threw them over their shoulders. After a bit, the stones slowly softened, and they began to change shape, and eventually they took the form of humans and became human. Those transformed stones are the ancestors of the humans of today, and that is why we have hardness and endurance that we possess, having come from the stones of our Mother Earth.
From the words by Angel Vigil, retold by Ruben Hernandez. For most, the start of the world was acquired by the Big Bang, which was what created the universe, including the Earth. The story for the Aztecs isn't necessarily starting with the Big Bang, but with having belief in birth, death, and rebirth. It is believed that life always comes to an end, but with the end, there is a start, meaning rebirth. For the world to be reborn, once again, one of the 5 gods has to be sacrificed to bring new life. Although for many other cultures there seems to remain continuous cycles of life, for the Aztecs there is an effective beginning, and it all starts with the dual god, Ometiculi. In Aztec culture, Ometiculi is a dual god, meaning it is both genders and controls both the good as well as the evil. With the god being both genders, it was able to have children who produce 4 gods that each represent north, west, south, and the east. The first sun god is represented as a jaguar. The jaguar was the key in Aztec culture because the sun was what they based their calendar and days off of. To possess such power as a jaguar god performed, there had to represent a sacrifice, which was Tetzalcoatl. The second god is the wind sun, who ends up taking over the jaguar's role in the culture because he lost the battle and was forced to go into the underworld. The wind sun was in charge of creating humans. The first civilizations were superior because violence had not existed. But when food rations started to decrease, the humans started to become corrupt. The wind sent a cosmic hurricane to start over with the humans. The third sun god was the rain god, who was in charge of the rain and water. The reason for human extinction in this version was due to the rain god's problems. His wife, Xochiquetzal, went with another god who produced him, holding back the water and rain from coming down from the great heavens. With frustration building upon, instead of emitting a vast amount of rain, he sent rain, fire, burning away the world. The fourth sun god, the water sun, ended the world with floods that would be close to connecting the heavens. Being filled with the jealousy, she tolerated her frustration out on mankind, which endures why she had blooded the world. The water god had wanted to restore mankind, so she went down into the underworld to retrieve bones that would start the next civilization. The ultimate god represents the earthquake sun. With the other gods containing flaws and leading to the end of humans, they wanted there to remain a world that would last for eons. Ometiculi, the dual god, built a fire to enter the concluding phase of the world, and of course there needed to be a voluntary sacrifice. All four gods jumped into it due to their flaws and wanting there to befall a world that lasts. 2 suns rose, but that was overly bright, so the dual god threw in a rabbit, which would produce one of the suns and the moon. With the world being in perfect harmony, it is believed that when it approaches time for the end, and a modern sun god rises, the world will end with massive earthquakes that will shatter the world.
Alright, the Mescalero Apache creation story tells of Izanaclesh emerging from the primordial waters. She was the first Apache woman. After observing her for a number of days, her parents decided Izanaclesh should have a female initiation ceremony, and she became the first to have an initiation ceremony. During this ceremony, young girls are taught all of the Apache spiritual and cultural values. The girls are taught tribal history, given the knowledge of the plants, animals, minerals, mountains, and landscapes. They are taught about the earth, the place below the earth, and the place above the earth. They're also taught to recognize that they are now living in the space between the earth and the sky. The Mescalero mythological account of creation relates in explicit detail that from the very beginning of time, the earth already existed and was in a process of continual change, which was and continues to be seen as the manifestation of this cyclical powers of nature. Mescalero myths and stories up to this very day account for the knowledge that the ancestors had of the earth, animals, plants, sun, sky, moon, and stars. The understanding of the physical world, however, involved more than just the information acquired by the senses. From the very beginning, we are told there was an awareness of inner forms of the animals and plants and other elements of nature, sources of the power understood as Dai. This power is responsible for objects being alive or having life, and is the supernatural force that allows ritual transformation to occur in people engaged in ceremonial activity.
The story Taino is from J.J. Mark. So, the Tainos live in the Lucayas Islands. They grew Antilles and the no lesser Antilles prior to the arrival of the Spanish. The Tainos used to compete with their neighbors, the Caribbean tribes, who were also South American native and live mostly in Lesser Antilles. The Tainos were the first indigenous people that Columbus contacted after arriving the New World. At that time, they inhabit a good part of the Caribbean, from what is now the Bahamas, Cuba, Jamaica, Hispaniola, or Puerto Rico. The Tainos cultivate cassava in their sweet and sour varieties, for which they use fertilizers and irrigation systems. Other important crops were corn, peanuts, pepper, pineapple, cocoa, potato, cotton, and tobacco. The Tainos were skilled farmers. Their cultivation technique was using the peel of agriculture terraces. It was for this that the Tainos developed irrigation systems. Another source of food was hunting of animals, among which are the yautía, the iguana, is like a lizard, the manatee. The Tainos raised some animals such as guimo, guinea, pigs, dogs, and some birds. Communities near the sea, they explored the coastline, where they got fish, game, conch, shells, and mollusks, among other species. The ball was made roots and herbs, and making a rounded and solid dough, like rubber. It was played between two teams. The ball was thrown into the air, and the other people had to prevent the ball to falling on the ground on their respective side. It was played with 4 parts of the body: head, knee, shoulders, and hips. Points were scored on the draw of the ball. Batu was a game in which two teams of 12 men and women played using the yoke or ceremonial belt. The participants attempt to bounce the batu against the yoke or ceremonial belt, which was constructed of ton of wood and was adorned with a religious motif. The number may always be increased in 12-digit increments. They made a paste out of bowling roots and herbs, presumably from the Copay, Clusia rosea. They made a ball with a strong bounce, about 10 centimeters in diameter, which has started the Spaniards, who were ignorant of the existence of rubber, throwing the batu into the air, batting both sides not drop it to their respective sides, returning any part of the body, safe hands, and being able to bounce on the stones that define the playing field edge, the side that let him roll on the floor, forfeited a point. It was a significant social occasion, and it was sometimes used to determine the fate of a captured enemy or punishment. The privileged visitors, the cacique and his heirs, they duo summon the spectators who sat around the court. Ceremonial seats. This was basically the life of these Indians, the children who began to do this sport and harvest from an early age.